Hey everybody, Michael McGinnis here, The Ripple Effect. Last time was such a great session on healing. It continues, and we begin with Master Tom.
Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Well, a couple of thoughts that came to me. A lot of our discussion last time had to do with kind of allowing the healing to work through you, and not so much about technique. But then it occurred to me that there are times when technique is important, and not just. It's like magic. If you're going to do magic, and I know Richard, you do. We're talking about sleight of hand, magic tricks.
Right.
You have to do that right, or it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The illusion has to be set up correctly, but it takes some skill to do that. And so there are times when the healing technique, and we did touch on it a little bit with the massage, techniques and so forth. There is a place for technique, I guess is what I'm saying. And I know that there was some feedback from our last discussion. Somebody wrote in some feedback about different techniques, and that those techniques depend on the circumstance. They may change according to the person and so forth, but you've got to have the technique, and the technique that fits the circumstance. So that's one thing that just occurred to me, that at some point we probably, if you're trying to do a technique, as an example, a specific technique, it behooves you to do it right, and not to just be messing around and pretending that you know what you're doing. If you're going to do channeling, so to speak, where you lay your hands on and you allow to happen, or if you, and Jeff, I know you have technique. It's not as if you just lay your hands on somebody and start massaging them. You know what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know what you're doing. And so it's a matter of allowing the technique that's appropriate in that circumstance. So that's one thing I wanted to say. And then the other thing that occurred to me was healing isn't always a health issue. That healing can take form in circumstances that you need to grow through. So providing an atmosphere for growth, or helping someone to develop an understanding of something, for instance, or helping someone to work through an issue by listening, primarily, knowing how to listen well, and knowing how to draw somebody out. And that's, Mike, that's kind of your job there. You're a good listener, and you draw things out of people, but not just through listening, but through suggesting and through, providing topics and so forth. So a couple of stories here. I had an experience in a car. I've had several car experiences where I had close calls. And one of those was in Myrtle Beach. And all of these stories are going to take place in the time that I was in North Myrtle Beach with the Mayor Baba Center. I was driving a Volkswagen bus to pick up, I was working with the youth activities program, heading over to pick somebody up. And I made my pull off, and a car passed me at the same time and hit the back of the Volkswagen, and it went whoop, like that, just flipped it right over. And when that happened, I felt like I was in slow motion, and that arms were holding me. It was like, okay, we got you, just let go, we got it. And that to me, I still remember the feeling. And when I got through, the only injury I had was crawling out the front window, or the windshield, which had broken. A little piece of glass had, just made a little mark on my hand. And that was the only injury I had, except for the next day where I had a few sore muscles. But that stood out to me, just that when I got out of the window, I wasn't sure what had happened. Still dazed, and I wasn't. It felt like everything had changed. that somehow this was a new life. And I was continuing on with whatever I was doing. And I was, I mean, it wasn't a totally new life, but it felt like something had shifted. And that to me was because when you take on the grace of a true master, um, or a guide like Mother Mira or Mayor Baba or one of the other avatars, they present things to you to give you the opportunity to learn, which is how I kind of got into this. They present circumstances that help you grow or that shift things for you. Like when Tom had his healing, I mean, why did he have that healing? It was grace. Mother Mira was because he had done what he did through love, not because he was trying to control anything. You know, he might have, it might have seemed like a mistake for him to have done what he did, and it might have been, but his intention was good. And so the healing grace there was, okay, you made a mistake, but here, let's work on that. You've learned your lesson, so you've done enough.
Yeah, one of the things he said about that was, I earned all these problems, but I don't deserve it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So, the grace occurred there. The second story was I had, that was a time in my life was not married. I was at the Mayor Baba Center, and it was my sojourn, it's my spiritual journey. And I was able to take a year off from where I had worked. I actually took retirement because I didn't plan on going back to that job. And I had a little bit saved up that I could go and actually spend about a year living in an Airstream trailer. And I was able then to go to the beach and walk and have all these experiences and go to the Mayor Baba Center. So it was a blessing, for me. But I wasn't married, and no, there were young ladies around, and I would think, oh, gee, this be nice to find an attractive young lady to spend some time with while this is all going on. So there was one particular lady that caught my eye, and this was before Isa came along. So I was spending some time kind of just developing a coy sort of, who is this person? And she was a vegetarian, very strict vegetarian, vegan. And I wasn't vegetarian at that point, but I wanted to impress her, right? I mean, I wanted to, okay, well, I can, pretend to be, I can be vegetarian, if that's what it takes. So, so I was doing fine, but I didn't know a lot about it, but and we hadn't really connected physically or anything, but we were just kind of skirting around each other. So I invited her to come over to the trailer one day so we could go walk to the beach. And I was having breakfast. It was in the morning. And I had my eggs all lined up there and my dozen eggs, getting ready to take my egg. And she came early. So I was ready to have my breakfast, which was eggs. And she was definitely not into eggs. So when I saw her out the window, I hurried to put the eggs away, and I dropped the entire carton of eggs onto the floor. There was no way to clean that up. So she knocked on the door. Here's a dozen eggs, face down onto the, all over the floor. So it was, my lesson was like, don't pretend to be somebody you're not, And so, it, it was made a friendship, but it didn't go much further than that at that point, because it was clear that I was not, a purist in the sense of, because eggs were not on the menu for us. So that was a lesson for me that I felt like it was guided. It was an opportunity through a circumstance that I didn't plan on. It was an accident, another accident. And, but it shifted me rather than going a whole full course of trying to pretend this thing and develop it on and on and on. It short circuit. Okay, enough of this. Let's tie that one up. The next one, and I mentioned last week, was the radio healing that I attempted. I was getting into healing, the whole notion of healing and using your thought forms to send healing energy. And I had several of these where I think I had talked about this thing on the mound behind the house where I used my voice to make a sound. It was a power sound, and this flash of lightning. Well, this one was, I had the same Volkswagen before that I had the accident. Radio was messed up. And I was driving along, well, maybe I can heal the radio, right? I mean, healing is healing, and why not? So I was sending all this energy and I was on a back road out in the middle of nowhere, actually between here and North Myrtle Beach. I used to go back and forth, driving along in the middle of 10 o'clock at night or so. Heal the radio, heal that radio, heal that radio. Well, not only did the radio not heal, but the whole electrical system was burned out in the car. Boom, it was gone. And there was no way. The car stopped in the middle of, and fortunately there were a few houses nearby. But this was in rural, I guess I was probably in North Carolina by that point. And 10 o'clock at night, there was a light on. And so I went over to the house and I could see somebody peeking out the window, from the curtain. And it was a black family. And I was a white guy, right? So they weren't sure why I was at their house at 10 o'clock at night. And they didn't want to open the door. There was no way they were going to be opening that door. And so my car's broken down. No. So they said, there's a house over so-and-so across the street over there. Go over there, they'll help you. So I finally managed to get, because I didn't have a cell phone in those days, get somebody to call the record company. And they came and got the car. And I guess it was a motel nearby. And when I got the car there, picked it up went to see about it the next day, there was a sign on the building next door to it. And as best I can remember at this point, it was Mayer Electrical something or another. It was like an electrical appliance company or something. And it was Mayor Baba, right? So it was like Mayer Appliance Company or America Electrical Works or something. And so, yeah, okay, I got it. I'm seeing this, because there was an obvious, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You will cause trouble for yourself to try to heal something if you don't know what you're doing. If you don't control that energy, you could blow out the whole system here. And then the fourth story has to do with at the same trailer, there was, it was a time I had Mayor Baba's picture on the wall. There was a little, like a double bed in the Airstream trailer with a wall across where I could put a picture. And I had Mayor Baba's picture there, like you would have a saint's picture up. And I wasn't a quote unquote Baba lover, but I did allow or did ask for guidance and help from, the teacher. And so I had his picture up to be thinking of him. And that was ongoing. So this particular day and this was kind of after this series of things, I would say, well, maybe I'm too dependent on this teacher, this guide or something. And, but on the other hand, he's really helped me a lot, maybe I need to be more independent and try stuff for myself, but he's helped me a lot. So it's kind of back and forth. And at that point I had a candle burning there because I was I wasn't asleep, and it wasn't morning. I was meditating basically with a candle, but also just sort of lucid, thinking. So as soon as I said, "Well, I don't mean to diminish, Baba," the candle went zoop, it's like that, and it stayed that way. It didn't go out, but the previous height of the candle went way down, diminished itself, and stayed that way. And that to me was like a very simple thing. Who knows why? Maybe the wax filled up in the candle. It was a natural occurrence, I'm sure, but the timing was right. And so I went off to tell somebody about this, and they had a candle burning at their house. And so I was telling her this story about what happened with the candle, and I said, "Well, I don't really mean to diminish Bendel." And the candle went on her candle went down the same way and stayed that way. And so after that, I did take the picture down, um, because I was becoming dependent on the imagery, and the teacher. It was time for me to begin to use what I had learned. This was close to the time when I left. I was there for 3 years. So it was getting close to the time for me to move on anyway, rather than stay at, a Mayor Baba Center and have a master. And I wasn't going to be an aspirant like people do sometimes. They'll go and be devotee, and all of their time is spent with that particular master. So it felt like it was okay. It's time to move on. So those stories were all had to do with occurrences that weren't physical healing, but more about helping me to heal my outlook, or to heal my direction, to heal. Well, I mean, I was maybe protected and saved to some extent in some of those occurrences. Um, so that just brought on this whole notion that I wanted to share about those things, and have the healing, not necessarily the physical healing of health, but the healing of your circumstances and of your life directions, that comes from um, a willingness to be guided, or a willingness for someone to speak to you, or for a teacher like Tom, when he went to Mother Mira. He could have said, "I'm not going. I'm not going to go. I don't need to go there." But he went. And so his willingness to go there, I mean, if he hadn't allowed himself to go ahead and go, knowing that he probably should, it'd probably be a good thing to do. I don't know what's going to happen, but it'll probably be a good thing to do. Following that, that intuition, or that inner sense, um, sometimes puts you in a circumstance, or most of the time, all the time, really puts you in a circumstance where something good can happen, um, something positive, especially if your intention is positive. And if you try to run away from things, chances are less likely it's going to take 10 years before you get what you need, right? As with Tom, he could have been healed 10 years earlier. Um, so just kick it off with that.
He
Thanks, Tom.
reminds me of the story I told before about the dream I had about helping a friend of mine. That like the imagery was he's in a boat and he's outrunning me.
Mm-hmm.
He hides behind a shoal, and somehow, because I was willing to work my way through the shoals, he stopped and allowed a connection. And his Facebook posts had been more and more, deeper and deeper into despair, and that's what made me worry about him.
Right.
But that morning, his Facebook post was bright and full of creativity and goodness. Not that he was completely healed, but since then, over this couple of months that since, his posts have been about appropriately mourning his the loss of his parents, pictures of them and memories of that seemed appropriate for mourning rather than despair for he himself.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see that that change start its way back up. So,
Yeah, and that's good for you to get that feedback too,
yeah,
because it's helpful to, if you are making an effort to send positive energy to somebody or healing, it's good to get that feedback. And so um, that's helpful.
yeah, yeah. It's a validation of the effort you put in, that you're not just fooling yourself.
So, a question for you is when, you know, going through a lot of the conferences or a lot of different sessions on all kinds of healing methods and things, and there seemed to be a degree of healing rules that would come up periodically. And one was that you need to get the person's permission to heal them. And yeah, I always wondered why, like in your case, Richard, you didn't go and ask them to do this or anything, right? You just did it. So what's your thoughts on rules or anything around healing?
I've heard that before from extremely well-intended people, that you have to specifically ask, "May I pray for you?" Or they ask you, "Would you pray for me?" And I think it's a misunderstanding of the depth of receptivity, that they're working off speaking as permission, as an indication of receptivity, where honest receptivity is much deeper. The depth of receptivity can go much deeper than that. And if you, whatever level I was at to connect with this guy, uh, he became receptive. So I'm going to say that the concept is correct, in that there needs to be the permission, but I want to call it, permission is misunderstood as, or reception is misunderstood as permission, or can be uh, relabeled as permission. But the also, and as in another experience, you can put a tremendous amount of energy into someone, and if they're not receptive, it does no good whatsoever. I I don't know if I've told this story here or not, but I was sitting in Sedona one time, and I happened to sit down on a rock and felt like I sat into a beam of light, a pencil-sized beam of light coming up from the rock through the top of my head. And as I sat there and allowed, it became stovepipe sized, 6 or 8 inches in diameter, right up out of my perception. And because I was concerned for a friend of mine, I was curious, can it come back down and bathe my friend? And it could. It came right back down without losing any power at all, any intensity, and right down. And it's like there was a 1 inch steel plate on his head. It just stopped dead. And, and it occurred to me, I wondered, still not, I'm trying to allow a greater intensity, and as bright as it was, it got brighter. And then I thought, well, what if you can focus, and without losing any intensity, but increasing the density of the light hitting a point, it got down to about a spot the size of my little finger, and still just would not. There was no receptivity at all. It wouldn't get through this guy at all. And at that point, I started wondering, well, if it's this hard to get through, what's it going to be like when it does? And it all faded away, and I couldn't get it, couldn't regenerate it or find it again. When I asked Tom about it later, he had said that if I had gotten through, it would have been a serious problem for me. That the blackness, me connecting with the blackness within this guy, would have injured me to a serious degree. And Tom's use of the word serious is not devastating, but serious. Tom's use of the word serious could mean something as something to the degree of the pain of a broken bone that lasts for years. He would consider that serious. A broken bone that healed, well, it's serious for a bit, but they heal up and it's okay. But really serious is an ongoing thing, like his back. So it was, and I ended up with, gee, I didn't help the guy, but would it have been worth it? There's no way of telling. It's just one of those guesses in the wind. But along the line of receptivity, it has to be there. But it can be far deeper than just verbal acknowledgement.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think it has to be permission in a circumstance where you don't know the person, or you're not even around them, you're not even near them. If your intention is to send love or healing for whatever the circumstance is, and then the person is receptive, then that's fine. But if you're trying to push something on somebody, as with Tom's situation, where he knew he wasn't supposed to do that. Right. He didn't ask, he didn't ask the guy, but he knew what was going on. So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, there's times when we don't know. Most of us don't know these things, but we want to help. And if helping means loving the person and just standing back, send them love if they're, and sometimes you see it work. So, like in your case, you saw that work, and you did it correctly because you didn't force anything. It was just an experience you had, and you followed that in your own self. You followed it within yourself, what you could, as far as you could go with it. So I think that's part of that, is your intention within yourself. I'm going to go as far as I need to within myself. If it's appropriate, that you can lend a hand to somebody. If you're doing hands-on healing, like with a massage or whatever. I mean, obviously, Jeff, you don't go out into the community and just start laying your hands on people, right? you wouldn't be getting, yeah, whoa, okay. You would probably have serious problems from that.
Well, that depends on how you do it.
Well, you can put your hand on somebody's back, say, "Oh, that's great," or something like that. Yeah.
And I always come back in this situation to something that Dan Chesbrough said. I believe it was Dan. And if you're doing that kind of healing and you can't verbally ask permission, which I found out from my own experience was important, that you just laid it at their feet. And if they pick it up, they pick it up. If they don't, it's there. And they can choose to pick it up whenever they want to. If I try to force something, or I try to make a healing happen, then that's my ego involvement. And that is a recipe for disaster. At the very least, I'll be drained and exhausted and tired. At the worst, I could end up in a situation where I've assumed someone's karmic whatever, and then I'm carrying that around. And I learned a long time ago that I had enough stuff to carry. I didn't need to carry anyone else's stuff, and besides that, it wasn't my job. My job was to do what it was I was doing to the best of my ability, like I said before, at that time. Yeah. And then as much as I could, be content with that process. And if I found that if I did that, then things worked out. If and we to come back to what you were saying earlier, what is healing? I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is for someone. And I don't need to know what that is. I mean, I've worked on people, done my thing, and, you know, and heard years later about something that occurred, like last week. Okay. I mean, I don't know, and I don't need to know. All I need to do is love them. And if I'm using a technique, to use the technique to the best of my ability. And I do think technique can be important. I think we make a mistake when we give the value of something to the technique versus the idea that the technique is a way to refine that energetic. You know, the technique, if I take a light and I put it through a crystal, you know, that crystal refracts the light into the colors of the spectrum. It's still light, it's just becomes specific. If I use a specific technique, that energy is still the energy, it's just becomes more specific to whatever that person may be presenting to me. And as far as all the various bodywork techniques that I've known and that I've utilized, they all can become part of my internal, I don't want to say this, my internal bag of options. And once, it's like playing music. Once you understand it deeply enough, there's a part where you don't even have to think about it. It will happen. You know, whatever, oh, I think I should hold this trigger point for X amount of time. Oh, I don't think I should do that kind of deep work on this person. And something else becomes more appropriate. And again, if I don't question that, and I just go with what that felt experience is, then it's going to work out the best for this person and for me. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, and I had an experience, you know, where I was working energetically with this person, and they really weren't aware that that's what I was doing. I was doing it because I could, and I'd learned this thing, and I was like, oh, well, let's try this. And it was having an effect. He was a client of mine, and I was doing this energetic thing, and it was having an impact. And I was like all excited again. I'm like, whoa. But there was a point that he got to, and again, he wasn't aware I was doing this. He was a point he got to where he couldn't get any further. And then energetically, I was stuck. Because now what do? I can't take this person any further. What do? He's certainly not healed, whatever that looks like, but he was better. I mean, do I just stop? I was in this quandary, and I couldn't discuss it with him because he didn't know I was doing it. So what I ended up coming away with was it's important that there's communication, and that you aren't just doing something to someone. And there's a point in healing where people have to pick it up. It became really important. And I, at a certain point in that process, I saw it real clearly that I could be Jesus on the road to Nazareth, and I touch someone and they're healed. Boom. If they just keep doing what it is they're doing, and they don't make the internal changes that need to happen, they'll just go back. It doesn't matter how powerful I become. If they don't pick it up, if they don't take responsibility, if I don't take responsibility for my healing, it will never be complete. It can't be. Because I'm the one that needs to make that change. I'm the one that needs to go deeply enough in order to I'm going to do a talk at some point in the next several months on how to change my mind. I'm the one that has to do that. Now, I can have all kinds of assistance, and all that assistance can be incredibly wonderful and powerful. But there's a level at which I have to become responsible for my healing. Somebody else can't do it to me. And the mistake we make in Western culture is that we're looking for the magic whatever, whether it's a pill, whether it's a massage session, whether it's someone to lay their hands on me. I'm looking for that magic thing that I can walk away from and then go, cool, I'm healed, without having to take that responsibility. And it's that responsibility that's key. It's critical.
I know some people in my family who do not do a good job of taking care of themselves, overweight, high blood pressure, diabetic and whatnot, and they turn to the doctors to give them the pills to fix it all.
And that's a good example.
Yep.
I mean, certainly when I was learning Reiki, one of the things they said was, yes, get permission. But I mean, I feel like I agree with Tom. I feel like to love someone, there's nothing wrong with loving someone. And I feel the same way about praying. I can ask for their, I can ask for their highest and best, or I can ask for their well-being, and say, let thy will be done. So I think, and I think that that's important. And I think because it's the other thing is like that occurs to me is so often, we encounter people in life who are suffering, and we can lighten their load. Like sometimes just looking someone in the eyes is transformative because they understand that they're seen and that they're valued. Sometimes taking just a few minutes to stop and talk to somebody is a balm. It is a balm to their spirit because they're lonely and they're suffering. And I guess at some level they have to be receptive to that. But I don't ask permission to go over and say hello and smile. And at some level, if they don't want me around, they just don't respond. I mean, and I've experienced that too, right? I mean, I've experienced going up to someone and smiling and saying hello and just getting a total stonewall. And, that's okay too. They don't have to talk to me. I can't make them.
And I think that's a great point. Before my sessions, and I still do this, when they would come into the office and, and they'd sit down in my little chair and I'd sit down in my chair and I'd ask them how they were doing. And I know that for many people, I was the first person to ask them that, who was actually interested in how they were doing. And I was going to sit there and listen. And I was going to respond to how they were doing. I used to tell students that the massage starts with the first hello. That process starts as soon as I see someone.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, I know that was very profound. Just that there was someone who was willing to sit and listen and not, have a judgment, because I didn't judge them. I'm just listening and respond as appropriate to whatever that situation was. And again, I used to tell students, it evolved so that I kept this Rolodex on my desk of all kinds of practitioners so that I could refer people, because I know they were telling me stuff that was not in my ballpark to work with, but I could refer them to someone who could. Just because I asked, just because, how are you doing? And I was willing to listen.
And, you know, it's interesting because it's like, you know, I think about social work practice. I mean, certainly if you're going to be, I'm a social worker by training, if you're going to be engaging in a therapeutic, if you're going to be engaging in a therapeutic technique with someone or have a therapeutic relationship, there does have to be permission. You know, you can't just make some random person the target of your, you know, your therapy experiment. You know, that's not fair. So it's interesting. It's an interesting question.
Well, there is a level of technique in experience or in wisdom or like the stuff we're talking about. The technique of being open-minded, the technique of being available, the technique of loving someone. I mean, in a sense, that is a technique, but it's not a skill like a particular method of healing, you know, doing certain things in a certain kind of way. But I think maybe the technique of sharing, the technique of learning, the technique of being open, the technique of offering yourself for assistance, those kinds of things. We could label that maybe as a technique, you know. There's probably other words for it, but you know, it's not to say that technique is a bad thing at all, but maybe broadening what technique means, skill that you acquire through life experience or through hearing someone else share a story or through something you read. I mean, that becomes a technique of your life. You know, one of the things that skills that you've learned in your life of how to step back at the right time or how not to do something, you know. So it's maybe broadening the definition of technique there.
Yeah, as you as you guys are talking, I'm thinking of the technique of humor. How I in a certain situation comes to mind when I was doing Santa Claus, and this family comes in with the three little kids, the older daughter who's too old to believe and doesn't want to have to be here. She's doing it for the kids, and she's clearly dealing with some form of chemotherapy here. There's not a hair on her head, eyebrows, anything. And she's just standing way back with a scowl on her face. Well, I'm playing with the kids and talking to them and doing my tricks to get them just to laugh and include the mother and picking on the dad and whatnot. And it happened to all work out in such a way that by the time they were walking away, she was looking up at her dad, smiling, laughing, and talking to him. And I considered that a healing of her. Did I have permission? I can't, the word permission doesn't come into it. But I'm going to say that because the whole family got laughing, that opened up her receptivity and changed her, at least her mood, if nothing else.
But there was an intention there on your part.
It was when they walked in, my focus was instantly on her, quick gauging where she was, discerning who she was, what she was, and then I turned my attention to taking care of them. And as it ended, my usual typical time with them ended, I wanted something more just for her. So I did the playing around stuff. I got a little squeaker hidden in my glove and play games with them with that. And man, when I, if you do knuckles, and if it squeaks, it means you're on the good list. And then with Dad, there's no squeak. They cracked up. that's what broke the young lady's mood. She just howled in laughter that it didn't squeak with the dad. And then I blamed him for it and made him, come on, do it right. And then he'd squeak. She was her complete 180 of her attitude. So the what did you ask? I've gotten lost.
Well, you practiced that. That wasn't an accident. I mean, you have a
No,
skill,
yeah,
and your skill didn't just come because all of a sudden you knew to do that. I mean,
yeah,
there's an intention on your part to be of service to people using humor,
yeah,
and so that's your technique. That yeah, and your technique you've practiced.
yeah,
You don't just walk in there and all this stuff magically happens. You have to practice um, the timing, you have to practice the style, you know, the inflection, all of those different things.
yeah.
Whether you've practiced in your previous life, you know, or you know, your life
Don't know that,
experience is your practice sometimes. And that's the thing about the priesthood that many of us who have been involved with that our particular order um, is that we have been already schooled and in our lineage at least. I'm going to say that for everybody, but for those of us that have been attracted to that, it's one of the things that's common to many of us is that we were already prepared for this, and because there was no school, you know, at that point, and
yeah,
there sort of is now, but it's not an official. You don't have to go to school to, you know, to be a priest in the order. There's a class that you take maybe now, but uh, for our particular function, it's our life experience that and our perhaps our karmic experience that has prepared us. But at the same time, we do need to become skilled at the ways that when we know something of what to do and what not to do, there is a skill to that we learn through wisdom and through experiencing and trying things and see what doesn't work as much as what does work. Um, so I just to say that you
yeah,
have practiced, you know.
yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Great
Good.
conversation. There was some great points made here too, and I go back to Jeff's conversation. I think that was really a great summation of the question here with respect to, you know, knowing, and I'm going to use Tom's, your word, knowing your intention. You know, is it your ego, you know, or is it just the well wishes? And I think, Jeff, you had said to, or somebody had said to lay at the bottom of their feet, right, and let it go. And I think that's a real powerful thing because I see people all the time trying to fix somebody else, trying to solve their unhappiness, their drinking problem or whatever. And absolutely right. It has to be them. And Jeff, your statement is you can go touch them all you want to, unless they've made that decision themselves. You know, I don't know. I'm sure we maybe could put a dent in the armor, but that's their choice. But what the key is the intention. This is the intention to just help, to just be of service, and that's how I tend to view it. Is it, and if so, you know, Richard, you, for example, you'll send out the emails with a prayer request, right? And so I have no formal practice. I don't know, you know, any particular technique or anything that I do. You know, I just step back there and I see the individual's name and I just recite to myself, blah, blah, blah. I send you love, you know, I love you. And that's it. Now, did I do it the right way or not? I don't know, but you know, all I know is my intention was simply to help, and I think that's why I like that expression KISS. It used to be keep it simple, stupid, and I really like the variation keep it simple and spiritual. And as long as your intention is to help, to care, to do, and realize is that leaving the ego is that means it's totally up to the person. I can't fix them. That's not my job. That's not my responsibility. I can just simply send them love and that be it, and trust that either helps or doesn't help, and that's not my call to make in there. And it sort of reminds me of my culmination of this is early on. Here were all of these things I was learning in the priesthood and conferences, and sure enough, I'm home in a setting, and have a cat, and my girlfriend had accidentally closed the dryer door, and the cat was in there sleeping on the clothes, right? And it had started the dryer, and then lo and behold, went to take the laundry out, and here was this cat, and it was still functioning or something. And so we brought it right to the vet, and of course they said that chances are really minimal and anything, and on here with God knows what had happened, but and I can remember I wanted to help, and so here was this thing. Yes, I'd love that cat. I'd love to have it back, and what can I do? And so I just simply I sat back, and I remember I remember a Kundalini thing, of which sitting there Kundalini breathing and being able to do it, and then you breathe out and close your eyes. And I know whenever I did that, I'd see a starburst in my eyes, and whatever veins or whatever it was happening. But I did that. I did that for 30 minutes, and I would think of the cat, how I'm helping healing and this and that, and Kundalini breathe, and then boom, breathe out and starburst in my eyes, and I'd repeat it, a course of 30 minutes or so, whatever. And and so I went into the vet, and the vet said, "You'll never believe it. This is a miracle. Is the cat was fine and everything." And so it was easy at first to sort of think, "Oh, I did that, right?" And that was the ego. But the reality for me was, hey, I'm glad I helped. I'm glad I really helped. That was sort of a confirmation. You know what? To make that effort and attempt, whatever it is, and to provide that to it, because we don't know what'll come. Sometimes it works, and I think there's been many stories here tonight, with the different examples, and going back to Tom, just hugging the stone of the Berlin Wall, right? To heal the earth and the confirmations come along to sort of demonstrate that, to me, that it gives us, hey, we can make a difference. Great, that's all I need to know. And so I just sort of have this sort of KISS mindset to it. But I also really like too, is Rachel had mentioned, is that depending upon settings, is that there are settings of which permission, technique, and other things is very much real, and it's important to follow suit on that too. And I can now think back many occurrences where that was really an important part. And just one final comment too is, Jeff, I think of your massage session, and I did share that last week in terms of the impact that it had. And I thought about that after it was done. And then when you were talking here just a few minutes ago, is that, you said that it starts with when you come into the room. Well, it reminds me, and I'll forget it, because yours was really, again, the first massage that I ever had, and also happened to be with a male. But it was also, I walked in, and you had the music playing, you had something that was creating this beautiful scent, incense or whatever it was, on there. And then before you started, if I remember right, you correct me if I'm wrong here, is I think you used to hit against one of those, the bowls or something.
Yeah, the Tibetan singing bowl.
Yes, that was it. Yes, and I can remember it was instantaneously, like, here was all of this. Okay, I'm in here as a male, all of these things and my issues and stuff like that, and the combination of those things and your words literally helped to create a setting where I was really relaxed, and then it opened up, itself to that. So it's this. In your case, it was the collective of things doing at times that really helped in that case.
And that's technique. It may not be specifically zeroing in on a problem that you have, but the technique is your setting. It's like the stage. It's like your props. Mm-hmm. It's like the things that set the stage for the healing, the atmosphere, that way the person who is there, like yourself, that helped you to open up, you know. And it wasn't because that in itself was going to heal you. It was setting the stage for you to have a healing.
Right. Exactly. It's allowing whatever will happen for this person to happen. And another thing, it's popped into my mind a couple of times, so I'll say it. I have a friend who has been in the hospital now for 3 weeks or something. And you know, and he's getting better. He's about ready to be released, and go home to finish his recovery. And there's been people praying for him and all and including us. And I was looking at the comments, and they were talking about how prayer works. It's worked for you. And whenever I see that, it always pops into my mind that there are lots of people that were in this person's exact situation, and there were lots of people praying and doing all of that stuff, and they didn't. Does that like, no? And so, you know, when if I go, this worked. There's a point at which I gotta step back, because what does that mean? Does that mean God didn't like this one person? You know, it's just it's silliness. Oh, it worked. I'm like, what worked? Who knows? And yet our egos get so wrapped up in this process. And I don't know, I just wanted to say that because I find that to be just such a, I don't know. The word's escaping me.
Well, the ego of the people doing the prayers thinking that they did it. That's where that comes from. It worked. I mean, I healed them. You know, it worked is that love works. Yeah, okay. And he was open to it for whatever reason, or it just ran its course and it didn't hurt. Didn't hurt to love him. And so, but to take credit for it, you know, it worked. In many cases, I think people are saying, I did that, you know.
Yeah.
I healed them. It worked, you know.
And
my
I'm just
healing worked.
And I have such an issue with, because then again, I'm like, well, what does this say about the other person? What does this say about, you know, the person that didn't come home? It's just, yeah. I find that very problematic.
My impression is that the people who are doing the cheerleading prayer works are trying to push their concept of God or their religion or something like that.
I agree. I agree.
When someone does pass, I suspect, I've nothing to base this on, but I suspect that the love, if the prayers were honestly given, not just demanded, but really honestly from the heart given, that they benefited from that, even though they passed. Even
I
though
agree.
They physically passed, that they still had a benefit from it.
You know, the idea that the vision that came to me in this latest experience, if that's what occurred, the vision that came to me was that this person was going to leave their body with 1,000 hands,
lifting them away.
Yeah, there he goes.
the battery's dying here. That there would be 1,000 hands lifting them up.
Yeah.
You know, and it comes back to, again, what's healing? I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's not my job.
I remember an Edgar, I'm going to get this wrong, an Edgar Casey reading where he said, referring to physical healing, that healing is reminding each individual cell what it's supposed to be doing to be that the cell should be loving and doing its proper job. That's a physical healing. And I'm assuming that beyond that, reminding a general concept of healing is a reminder of love. Whether the person is physically healed or dies or whatever, it's a reminder of a love that they're haven't connected with somehow. I don't have good words to explain.
Well, dying is not failure.
Yeah, right.
You know, they're going to.
And you don't know what the person, I mean, you don't know what the ultimate, you know, you don't have the ultimate big picture on each individual. Right. You know, maybe they need to suffer with a disease, or maybe they need to, you know, it's just like, you don't have that big picture. And that's why you do your action, and then you become, then you strive to be detached from the outcome.
Yeah.
And the other thing that popped into my head when Rachel was talking was that, you know, what was the overwhelming thing that Tom Sawyer experienced when he was in the presence of that divine light? Love. And at some level, healing is like you said, it's reminding us that is present all the time. We're never separated from it. That we think we are is to use a term, the great mistake.
Yeah.
And that if in healing or any of the work that I do or that we do is to remind someone, to remind ourselves of that, even a thousandth of it is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, as usual, great session. This was very upfront and personal, and the stories shared and everything to me is what's really awesome about it. And I think the message I'd leave anyone listening in is it doesn't have to be something formal to really help out somebody. Just understand what your intention is in it, and send people love. It's that simple, you know, and start with yourself, right? I think that's the failure we most often miss, right? Is just learning how to love ourselves increases our ability to be able to love others, right? So any final thoughts?
You know, in all the work that I have done in the singing, and now we did a Zoom Dances of Universal Peace last night. I feel honored, I feel humbled, and I feel blessed that I have found, or that whatever my path has been has put me in that space, because it reminds me to feel that. And I, you know, would I have thought of that or been involved in that if I hadn't been put in a situation where I was laying my hands on people constantly? Now I'm singing constantly, to just, to open that door. I don't know if that made sense or not, but I mean, I just feel very honored and humbled that, because so much of that is the effect it's had on me.
Tom had said one of the differences between psychic and spiritual healing. Psychic healing will drain you, where spiritual healing, you get a healing too.
Right.
Tom, the light, so incredible. It's amazing.
That's what I was going to say.
It's magic. I'm directing all of this. The wizard has come to heal.
Yeah, I was just going to tell you, Tom, go to the light. Go to the light.
Yeah.
Go to the light. Maybe this was it because it looked like a tunnel
I keep
forming around them.
trying. I keep trying.
There's something
And then
circle.
and then I get healed. Something happens and it changes it, you know, and I keep
Turn around. You've got your back to the light, Tom.
Yeah, that's right. I'm supposed to turn towards the light, right?
Yeah.
Not run from it.
But gentlemen, we are down to 5%.
Oh, wow.
Battery.
Yes. So the moral of the story, if you run into anybody who's offering you some healing and they have the slogan like they do in business, I get results, run. So next time, maybe we can pick up the conversation. I love what Jeff started off. I know Tom mentioned it when we started or before we kicked off tonight is on to that topic of the physician-assisted suicide net topic. I know it's something I really love to engage in. So until then, thanks everybody. Great session. Love to you all. May the force be with you. That was my healing.
Peace.
Light.